Hey everybody. Um, Somebody asked me to do the Doom Patrol. Well, Ian, you know who you are. So he said, asked me to do the Doom Patrol. And before we do the Doom Patrol, the series, we have to do what might be the greatest annual ever. This is like, this actually is one of my favorite comic books. At least for the period. It's at this point, I think Byrne really hadn't worked with a lot of writers. He worked with outside of having a companion book in the Adventures of Superman. He had maybe 4 pages with Louise Simonson. Um, can't think of much else during this period. So let's see. At this point, Byrne comes on as penciler and inker on this annual for the Doom Patrol, and it seemed like a really easy fit for Byrne to do the new Doom Patrol. But I'm not sure that he was too heavily interested in the new Doom Patrol. But excuse me. So we'll do the annual, and at some point, maybe I should have done this earlier while the TV show had just started. I got some numbers, but what can you say? Right. So if you get the trade, I believe it has this book. I'm not sure if it has the Justice League that Byrne did, where they reintroduced the Doom Patrol. Maybe I'll talk a little more about that at the end before we get into this series. Right. So imagine at this point, Byrne is kind of still working with Carl Kiesel. He's inking some of his own stuff on the action, and he's co-writing the Adventures of Superman. He took it over from Marv Wolfman, who left or was either pushed out. And we had this book come out. Now, he was supposed to do Freaks, but he was kind of looking for Byrne to do another book at DC. And this was like, here's a computer sort of digital image up top here of the city skyline, and it's gorgeous. And this page here is completely gorgeous. So at the same time, I mean, come on, this is like, for me, going in here, I was just like, if Man of Steel was inked like this, if they just if Byrne wasn't trying to look for the line that Dick Giordano got, and he just did it himself, it would have been, good Lord. This is, oh my goodness, right? So, and I will say, this is your quintessential comic book. Now, it has some things that you can't get around, right? Something happens in the second half of this story, right? But it also came to reason. I started to see what was the difference between Byrne of old and Byrne now. And I can just say here, right? I was like, I need to see some Byrne Captain Comet. But Byrne was moving away from like doing, outside of doing Superman. His thing was kind of getting into the character actors and that sort of stuff. So he would do the major things, but his cast, his new characters that he create would always be like very much character ensemble pieces, like people that had different kind of looks. Maybe just because people said all of his faces were the same, so he would kind of, when he could, stray from doing the straightforward stuff, which is what we basically wanted. So we kind of guilted him out of doing the brutes and babes, the leading men and the long-legged babes, but no pun intended, right? So we go for this first page, right, which is gorgeous. You have Robot Man. We can tell. I already showed you there's Robot Man, but he's walking up to the where he used to be in Midway City. He goes in, but he gets captured, and they're like, need some identification, right? And that's why I say it's a quintessential comic, but how Paul Kupperberg scripted it. It's basically told from Robot Man's voice. He's telling the story of his partners and or former partners, and everything is done in his style. So it's not exactly like the thing, but it's kind of has somewhat of that feel. He's like has a lot of attitude, a lot of character in his voice, and Paul Kupperberg really kind of brings that out. So it really enhanced this. You see, it felt like these two guys. I think I know Paul Kupperberg and Byrne are friends. This is like the first we got to see them do anything together, and Byrne worked with another scripter. Well, he's a writer, but someone doing some other script for him over his art, and he really kind of makes it sing, right? And one of the best parts I liked is coming up here as far as the dialogue. So we have now. I think I had figured that this was the negative woman, but we have him coming into the mansion, and we have is it Valeria? I think it is. I could be wrong. She is watching him from afar, right? And she's trying to get some information out of him. So she says, "Hey, you need to go. Your ID isn't enough. You need to tell more about the rest of your crew, right?" And it's just, I do want to. So we have Cliff Steele, who's kind of arrogant guy, hotshot, and he's going way too fast, which is ready to win. He runs the oil slick, and he gets hurt. He gets he realizes he wakes up. He has robot hands, and he's like, "Turn me into a monster." So where's the midget? He doesn't realize that nice Calder, he was in a wheelchair. And then we had this great moment where it's like King Kong, and he says, called out no one could stop him. Of course, he finally found the guy. We both know how that turned out. Or do I keep going? Or maybe you want my shoe size too. And it's like, what? I think he means him. So that's a really great sequence of how he paced it out, where he's trying to find the person who turned him into it, and we know that it's the chief, and then it goes from this dark moment to this heavy emotion, where a person with no emotion on his face, and then he said, "I love that man, Waldo," and he gives him his history, him going to, I believe it's in the Peace Corps, and it's Calcutta, India. I was going to say India, but it's Calcutta, India, right? He helps a woman. We can tell this is going to be the woman that's going to be in the new Doom Patrol. Helps her out, gives her some other stuff to hook her up, and she's gorgeous, right? And then he's going about his business and finds a mortis, and the mortis injures him and also cripples him and messes up his whole life, right? So this guy is in the backdrop of him. It's almost his Dr. Doom, right? So he goes on, and while they're getting to the talk, the negative woman has these troops coming in, and he wants to talk about his other partner, Larry Trainer, and this is another great sort of shot here. So yeah, this stuff is really saying. I was just like, this is the next stage. It's like I knew it was coming. I knew something was going to happen. He was going to get even better, right? So it's like, yeah, this is. I think this at this point, as far as the story goes, felt like it's topping the Superman Big Barda issues, right? Art wise, right? So we get the whole. He gets the bands that allow him to walk around and not emit, this radioactive energy. But he's, of course, just like Cliff, like this person who just people recoil in fear, right? But he sees a kid in trouble, and instinctively, a negative man appears and he saves him, right? And then we got his history. So at the same time this is happening, the troops are inside, right? Then we get to Rita, and Rita supposedly, regretfully, was the only one who stayed dead. in this series, but when it came to the new, and I guess I can go to the history of that for 2 seconds because we're not too far in. We're not going to do all 18 issues of the Doom Patrol, right? So, she at this movie set. She goes to the site and she gains this power and turns into a giant. Kind of scares away people, so she's kind of pushed out. The TV show kind of took it and went left with it, that she can't control her mass and size and stuff like that. But then she said, you're all sort of pushed out of society, you're outcasts, and he makes them into the Doom Patrol. Now, I think, in my opinion, I almost wish Byrne kind of went to the green. He did the green in, I think, issue 12 and 13, and really sung. I kind of think it would have really made them look really cool instead of kind of the new outfits. But that's just my opinion. Maybe just because I just like the green outfits. Right, and we get to see their villains, a little montage of all of their cool villains, and Mento and the Changeling when he was purple, and here, how they died. Now, they weren't actually supposed to stay dead. The readers were supposed to write in and ask for the characters to be saved. So they're doing something for shock value, but there were no fans out there. So they stayed dead, and of course, they didn't come back until the new Doom Patrol, right? Where, was it Will Magnus, puts them together, makes them a Byrne, sort of, who's it, Joe Staten kind of do it. I think they asked for a Byrne sort of robot. So they made one, and Byrne did a couple gags about it, and they confront Robot Man, right? Once he gets attacked, he said, we need some heavy explanations. And the reveal is Valentina. I'm sorry, I had it wrong. Valentina Vostok. Right? And that's a great shot here. Her plane going down and going through the same thing. And she winds up in the same place at the mansion. And she reveals how she gained powers. Right? From the serum that the chief gave her. Realized the Doom Patrol is destroyed. So then she comes to town and she hooks up with a bunch of other outcasts. And we have Joshua Clay, who's this troubled person, sentenced to military service, and he goes on some tests and he gains his powers and runs away and hides out. This gorgeous page. Nice, muddy and dirty. Even dirtier than the other thing. And Robot Man goes to the old headquarters and runs into the new Doom Patrol, right? And you realize they've taken on the moniker, and he joins them, and they fight their new villains. And they run into Superman, Power Girl, right here. It's just, let's get out of here with this. They get the tension of it. And they run into the new Teen Titans. They actually look like teens here. Right? And then Valentina tells them to stop. And once Cliff hears Valentina, you see his emotion for her. And he's like, baby, it's really you? And he wants to talk to her, wants to connect with her. But she doesn't want to. She closes off contact. And then takes off his shirt, they give him his jacket, and he runs off the way Ben Grimm used to. And then we go into what an ending, right? We got Byrne, and I guess this is Paul Kupperberg. I only seen Paul Kupperberg when he was gray. Or it could be Roger Stern, I'm not sure. I never saw Paul Kupperberg when he was younger without gray hair. Look at me, I got gray hair, so no offense meant to be said. And a little intro to what the new series is going to be about, which is done by Steve Lytle and later Eric Larson. And I had a few of these issues, and Steve Lytle, he's a great artist in his own right. And you got a hint, they're going to have, that issue's going to have a sort of overview of the whole series also. So if you want issue 1, that works the same way. I think when this Comic-Con comes, I'll put it on my list of comics to get. There's comics I'm going to get and get I don't know how many of the this second Doom Patrol, the third Doom Patrol series I want to get. but I'm gonna get at least the first 10 of them, and then I think some New Mutants that I want, and some graphic novels, right? And this is the cover that Steve Lytle does, right? So that's gorgeous. And we got the Captain Comet story, which is done by Roy Thomas and Ron Harris. Artist I don't know, but I know Bruce D. Patterson, who's a great inker. And I think I'm going to check out here. But I read the main story many a times, right? So I was like, and Byrne does a Superman story with the Doom Patrol in 18. So you can see he didn't leave them all high and dry, right? So at some point, this series and the one that Paul Kupperberg passed over to Grant Morrison becomes a big deal that can never be replicated, because as great as it was to many people, no one could follow it. No one would. Their fans would not allow anyone to follow it. There was no way. I think it's Rachel Pollack. She takes over. Then they had another series before this one came out that was quickly canceled, and then they allowed Byrne to do it, and they became a lot of jumping around complaints. But at the same time, it was a fun series, right? And we'll get into it at some point because someone asked me to do it. But this is your intro to it. What else? What else can I say about that? Yeah, I think was it Mike Carlin just said told Byrne he was going to do a new Doom Patrol series, and he was like introduced them in the Justice League, and then he was like, well, it'd probably take me 6 issues to get where I want to go. He said, but do you want me to? It's like, well, you can just Man of Steel your way to it. It's like, okay, I'll do that, right? So it had a lot of weird stuff in here, like attuned to what's usually in the Doom Patrol, but it wasn't kind of weird that people kind of took to for some reason. And this was a straightforward comic book that Byrne was doing. I guess that's it. My theory on putting them in green outfits isn't really a strong one, but it's what I would have wanted. But what else? Yeah, no, I think I have all of them. It wasn't like I ran out of steam. I think I kind of ran out of steam on some of it was Star Brand, but I think I have most of them except one that Byrne did. So I think I don't have 18. No, I think I might have 18 too. Man, it's crazy. All right, so there you go. The Secret Origin, annual #1, starring the Doom Patrol and Captain Comet. Really nice drawn, a really nice cohesion between artist and writer. You don't see the writer the 2 seconds that I wrote a comic with a friend of mine, I kind of took this on as how to kind of like tie your script into with the art. Because when I first looked at it, it was so hard to kind of put it in my mind to do that. But some of the tricks that he did here, it's really classic. So, and this guy is a Bronze Age sort of writer, and he really did a great job kind of tying this together, doing sort of captions that would be like narration, but not feeling very extremely noir, but seeming more in Cliff's sort of voice, and really gives you like the type of character that he is. And I guess that's about it. Spin Rack out.